Compared with the latest offerings from the boat show, these boats are slow, inefficient, highly strung and complicated. They're individualistic and time-consuming and require total dedication on the part of their owners. There are no half-hearted steamboat men. They're all either totally committed or they just don't bother. They come down here, wear a boiler suit because that's the only sensible clothing to wear when you're shoveling coal and greasing an engine the whole time, smothering yourself with steam, watching that you don't touch the wrong part of the engine. Why do they do it? Is it the love of an old boat that reminds one of better times, more gracious age, or is it just the machinery itself? The Steamboat Association of Great Britain held their 4th annual regatta this summer on the Beaulieu River at Butler's Hard.
This blasted modern thing that we've got to do, you know, in ankle deep.
Alongside Alex Moulton's Alice at the quay was a rather more informal steam launch called Leo. Owner Colonel Linklater was having trouble with an elderly boiler.
I shall light this up in a minute. It's a vaporizing burner, therefore I start off with a little methylated spirits, about 3 ounces methylated spirits, to heat the vaporizer, and then with a bit of luck we may get a fire going. About half an hour later I hope enough steam to slowly tick over.
Smoke, steam, 19th century machinery isn't only a man's world. Dominique Gregory explains why.
I can still remember trains. This is a throwback to childhood. You need something that puffs and has smoke in it. So you have a steamboat. It's just fun. It's different. It's not automated. It's not mass-produced like everything else is today. You press a button and go off at 90 miles an hour. You have to sit for half an hour and feel it.
How do you set about finding a good steam launch like Vixen with her 1891 engine? Lord Strathcona.
I saw a steamboat advertised, and I went to buy it, decided it wasn't quite what I wanted. And then I went round and I prepared a register of all the steamboats in the country. And this is really where this all began, because in the course of that, we discovered about 70 extant steamboats. And we formed this association. And this business has really arisen out of that little book which we originally compiled, which is just a list of all the steamboats there were in England.
To choose a good steamboat and be able to maintain it, how necessary was it to have engineering experience?
I suppose in today's terms this is true, because the engineering that goes into running a steamboat is unfamiliar with people today. But you don't really need to be an engineer to run a motor car, but you did have to be 50 years ago. And once you understand a steam plant, it's inherently a very reliable thing. Putting it together is another matter. Exactly. And you want somebody like old George here to tell you that the feed pump won't balance the hot well, and the hot well won't balance the condenser. Well, Larry, am I talking sense? Yes. Once you've got it all sorted out, then it's not really too difficult. The only trouble is you never do get it sorted out. I think we're being summoned to get underway.
On a sunny morning in September, Nicholas Knight's immaculate launch Natalie joins the steamboat fleet upriver.
How is she? Going very well, thank you.
Are these collectors eccentric? Sir Hugh Casson, a steam enthusiast.
Nothing but dottiness in what you keep. Keeping is an irrational thing, and that's the nice thing about it. But with these little steamers, I think there's several qualities. First, anything small is nice, isn't it? And anything tiny is always attractive. Second, it's frightfully elegant. They're all very pretty. Little engines, no bigger than typewriters, funnels no higher than a cigarette, and the elegance of the mahogany and brass, and sharp elegance of the canvas and the stanchions and everything. So they're very pretty. And the third thing, of course, which is absolutely fantastically good about them, is they're quiet. To see these little steamers puffing about the river and not making a sound, and the bird doesn't even get up from the water as they come past, that's marvellous.
The heat of a furnace, the smell of oil, the hiss of steam. That's what it's all about on Brindley and every other boat at Beaulieu. Well, Mr. Wilson, your engine looks a bit bigger than the others we've seen so far. How much horsepower has it got?
Well, the engine has only got the power which the evaporation of the boiler. The boiler gives 10 horsepower continuous. But if we have a bigger boiler, we can probably get out of that to double high pressure, about 60 horsepower.
Double high pressure? What do you mean by double high pressure?
Well, instead of the steam being used in one cylinder at high pressure and then condensing into a much larger one, it does its work twice. It'll start in any position, quarters are cranking, you see. Immediate reverse, you see it. No gearbox is needed, the engine is instant reversible from the direct reverse. And very manoeuvrable.
Well, I can see it's very manoeuvrable. All you did to put it in reverse was move this lever here.
In reverse without shutting the steam up. It's as old as the hills, that's the Stephenson link motion, which was been used on locomotives for over 150 years. True, they will not be as efficient as a condensing engine where you use the steam twice.
I.e. your steam goes back into the boiler again?
Yes, it's a condensing engine, but this one is a popper. She blows the fire up by exhausting up the chimney.
And all your exhaust steam, having pushed the cylinders, if you like, goes straight out into the atmosphere through the funnel.
By doing so, it blows the fire up, gives it a good evaporation.
Yes. Well, how much coal do you use, say, in a day?
We're probably more wasteful than a condensing engine, but not a lot. You will use about, Windermere, what do we use? About 150 pounds in a day.
150 pounds in a day?
Yes.
And what top speed can you get out of the boat?
Well, she goes about 5 knots. If we 5 knots in open water like this, we aren't doing that now, we're doing about 3.
Now, I noticed that you've got here about 115 pounds per square inch.
125.
125.
Yes.
How high can you get that to on this boiler? Is that your limit?
The blow off, the safety valve comes in there and blows off.
I see. So we're near the limit now,
Yes,
really.
You might blow off in a moment, but we don't like it to blow off with waste water.
Yes. How much water do you have to carry?
Well, we carry 150 gallons in the tank in the front. It lasts us about 2 days.
The steamboat sailors kept a rendezvous up the Beaulieu River, and there in sunshine, all too rare this summer, these treasured craft were steered into a contest of organised fun and games. Volatility, owned by the Gregory family from Nottingham, was locked in combat in a tug-of-war with Mr. Derrick Mill's Oxbird, a 19-footer with a 1914 engine. After a good deal of puffing and panting, Oxbird won. So her owner, editor of the steamboat journal Funnel, had a personal victory to write about. Nicholas Knight's Natalie and Alex Moulton's Alice, a deal between the Steamboat Association's chairman and the inventor of the Moulton bike. The elderly Leo was just an observer, not risking high pressure or a burst boiler. The big race of the day, Puff, Vixen, Oxbird, Natalie, Alice, all hope for a good head of steam and a bold man at the helm. Puff and Willow neck and neck. The steam pressure's rising. Long winter months of restoration and maintenance are put to the test. Now the collectors are competitors, risking their most prized possessions to reach the finish first.
Get on! Yes, first with Vixen, first with Vixen, and then with Hero, and then we'll decide whether we can do anything else after that. It's a race against the tide.
The final test, torpedo boat attack. Hero, a Victorian electric launch converted to steam in 1969, tows a balloon target upriver, and the attackers race each other to explode it first. Puff and Alice are the quickest on the kill. One of the disadvantages on a steamboat that hasn't got a condenser is you lose all your feed water out into the atmosphere. So you have to keep pumping up the feed tank. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm pumping water from the storage tank into the feed tank, which is drawn into the boiler. And it seems to take hours. The fleet ties up at Butler's Hearth. With the regatta over, the steamboat season comes to an end. In all, there are something like 300 steamboats in Britain in the care of enthusiasts like these, aiming, as their association puts it, to promote high standards of workmanship and seamanship. The Master Builders Hotel links the Beaulieu River today and 2 centuries ago. Then it was the home of Henry Adams and his sons, who built Nelson's ships from New Forest timber. In the Maritime Museum, a model of the frigate Euryalus and a portrait of the master builder himself behind Lord Montague, who spoke of steamboat addiction as an escape into the past.
I think as an escape into an era which they thought sounds by reading books and seeing old movies was wonderful compared to today, but in fact our grandparents wouldn't necessarily agree.
Why not?
Well, I think that sometimes one forgets the bad things of the past and only remembers the pleasant things. But certainly it was a more leisurely age, and I think there's a future shock which is settling on us all now. It makes us hark back for the days of more leisure and more calm and peace. And when a steamboat is waiting to go from the quay, there's no sound at all. I mean, you just glide off silently into the water with very, very little noise, compared with a modern speedboat or powerboat.
We asked Lord Montague why he thought so many businessmen in this country spend tens of thousands of pounds on restoring and running antique steamboats.
Well, it's always lovely to do something yourself, actually, instead of just sitting at a big desk and picking up telephones and using telexes all around the world. I think it's something actually doing something, and getting your hands dirty is a great attraction for people.
The steam yacht Corolla was one that failed to get to Beaulieu for the final regatta. Stranded in Portsmouth Harbour with a broken boiler and escaping steam, it was a bitter disappointment to her owner, businessman Ken Gray, who had sailed her from the East Coast with a dedicated crew of lifeboatmen. She would have been queen of the fleet. What actually happened?
Well, unfortunately, we have a boiler tube cracked. It's only a small crack at the moment, but these things can only become worse. There's steam, in fact, coming from the water side of the boiler into the fire side of the boiler. It's not a great leak. We could probably make it to Beaulieu if it didn't get any worse. But if it did get worse, we could have about 3 tons of water dumped into a red-hot furnace. And this would be very dangerous. In fact, it would be an explosion.
Raking over the coals, Corola's crew and owner faced a repair bill of about £300 for new boiler tubes. Built in 1898, she stayed in the same family until the 1930s. Ken Gray found her on the Clyde full of rust and spent the last 25 years getting her back into original shape. Corolla, at 70 feet overall, one of the largest steamboats afloat, stayed at her berth in HMS Vernon. Not so Royal Navy's steam launch 376. She set out from Portsmouth to rendezvous at Butler's Hard, driving into a choppy sea.
Well, conditions are better than I thought.
Sorry?
You've seen the ferry coming out? Over on the starboard bow then?
Yes, I see it. Yes.
65 of these steam launches were built for the Navy in World War II, and 376 is thought to be the last of the line. She towed helicopter targets in Weymouth Bay for several years until acquired by the Maritime Trust. She's crewed by volunteers responsible for her safety and well-being. She's a real Navy ship of 50 years ago scaled down. Compound condensing machinery, oil-fired wetback Scotch boiler, traditional engine room cowls. She's got the lot. Steam Launch 376 made the dinner at Beaulieu. The discomforts of the day were soon forgotten with Lord Strathcona a lively host. But it was Tony Gregory, owner of Volatility, who a few hours before best expressed the enthusiasm of these steamboat sailors.
The boiler is a new boiler. It's a multi-tube boiler, so the fire in here is exposed to as much of the tubes as possible and heating as much water as possible. We can burn anything in the firebox. You see, I've been cheating a bit perhaps and have catalogues here, and it helps me for firing up. I can be very quickly fired. It's not really cheating because that enables me to light bits of wood, any old coal that I found lying around the place. It's the leading the field in the alternative technology, actually. We find any bits of plastic floating down the river, squeeze your bottles, in they go, and up the chimney in a cloud of smoke, and we're making steam. It's causing nobody any harm, and you know how quiet they are. So, altogether, it's a lot of fun.
And what do you think the power unit itself cost you?
I should imagine this little fella here is worth £35, or was worth £35 a year ago, so heaven knows what it's
Just
worth
that
now.
little interchange?
That little steam injector. The boiler cost me £400 a couple of years ago. There's a lot of work in the boiler. It's not just a tin with a fire underneath it. There's an awful lot of work. And an awful lot of pressure in there. If you knew you were sitting next to 3 tons of pressure, you'd be a little more nervous than you appear to be at the moment. But of course it requires a proper discipline. You see they even put little padlocks on the safety valves to make sure nobody tampers with them. And your pipes must be really strong and capable of doing all the work that they're supposed to do. You have a lot of vibration, you have to take care of that. So there's a proper discipline, a real discipline involved in steam work. It's not just a toy, you've got to respect it. And you could get massive burn, fade around, with a very, very dangerous stuff indeed.
How much time do you spend on maintenance?
at least a couple of nights a week, I should think. I'm in there in the garage, because this is a dry boat. It's lifted out every time it's used, and so it goes on its trailer into the garage. All the paintwork's run over, the bilges are pumped out and cleaned up, and the brasso, of course, comes out and everything is polished. That's a long job, polishing everything, because as soon as you get heat and water, it turns the brass into a dull, rusty colour. And of course, a bit of water on the cylinder heads here turns it to red rust in a matter of seconds. You see, it's not just a coincidence that steam men like things bright, because cleanliness is a part of efficiency. And if you have dirty tubes in your boiler, that means that the tubes aren't operating properly, so you're wasting a lot of energy up the chimney. And everything has, if it's clean, it's efficient. And so the two go hand in hand. That's why you'll always find a steam engine polished. I like steam. It's a technology you can understand. I think the world's leapt ahead of it's too far advanced along transistors and electronics, the like of which I haven't not a clue about. But I can understand steam pushing down a cylinder and pushing it back up again. And having said that, which sounds very simple, it does it in so many ways. It expands differently, it goes down tubes differently, you can use it twice, you can use it economically, you can do all sorts of things with steam that have not yet been thought about. And it seems that you could spend a world, an age, just thinking about doing things with steam that haven't yet been invented. We've leapt too far ahead. The internal combustion engine is a lot of fun, nothing against it at all, but that's the easy way. If you want a bit of interest in this world, I think you tend to do it the difficult way, and you find a lot more fun in it.
Well, what does this steamboat rally at Beaulieu this weekend add up to? In these days of transistors, black boxes, printed circuits, there are still people around who derive tremendous satisfaction from operating machinery they can actually see do its work. Most important of all is the tremendous enthusiasm of steamboat people who give up most of their spare time to their hobby. In these days of potted passive entertainment, maybe that's no bad thing.
One of the great things about a steamboat, in my experience, is that you get very little chance of looking at the scenery going by. You're so damn busy trying to keep everything going and monitor all the devices on it. And you know, a lot of us get a great deal of respect for the people. This was their means of transport 50 years ago. They relied on these things. It was the only way they had of getting around. And one of the things that I find intriguing about driving steamboats is not only the sense of nostalgia, but this sense of enormous respect for the achievements of people who traveled all over the world in devices of this sort.